Here is something most people never learn in their whole lives. The way you reheat your leftovers, a habit you probably repeat a few times a week without giving it a single thought, can quietly change the chemistry of the food sitting on your plate. In 5 very ordinary foods, the kind in almost every fridge in America do something surprising when they hit the heat a second time. They start producing compounds that put real pressure on one of the most important and most ignored organs in your whole body, your pancreas. Quick reminder of what this organ even does, because most people are a little fuzzy on it. Your pancreas has 2 enormous jobs. It makes the enzymes that break down the food you eat, and it makes insulin, the hormone that keeps your blood sugar under control. When it struggles, both your digestion and your blood sugar feel it. So this is not some minor side organ tucked away where it doesn't matter. This is a control center, and it's one you really don't want to wear down. And here is the part that catches people off guard. Your pancreas almost never complains. It does not ache, it does not cramp, it does not throw up a flashing warning sign when something is going wrong. It just keeps doing its job in total silence, which is exactly why what you are about to learn is worth your time. Pancreatic cancer is one of the hardest diagnoses in modern medicine. Fewer than 1 in 8 people are still alive 5 years after they hear it. A big part of why it stays so dangerous is that the pancreas keeps quiet until very late in the game. So the single smartest thing you can do is give it less to deal with in the first place. Now for the good news, because there is plenty of it. Every one of these 5 foods has a simple fix. Nothing dramatic, nothing expensive, just one different choice the next time you open the refrigerator door. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will know exactly what those choices are. If clear, honest health information is what you came for, hit subscribe and tap like. It helps more people find this channel, and the goal here is 300,000 subscribers. Checklists and extra health posts go out on my Telegram, and the QR code is on your screen right now. Let's start with the one that surprises people the most, and it begins with oil. Picture last night's dinner. A few fried chicken pieces, some fries, maybe a spring roll. You don't want to throw good food away. That's reasonable. Most of us were raised not to waste. So you pop it in the microwave, or even more tempting, you drop it back into a pan with a little fresh oil to bring back that crispy edge. And right at that moment, you kick off a chemical process your pancreas is almost defenseless against. Here's what's happening. The everyday vegetable oils most of us keep on the shelf, sunflower, corn, soybean, are surprisingly unstable when they get hot. Even the first time you fry with them, they start to break down a little. Heat them a second time and you trigger something food chemists call oxidative breakdown. The oil literally starts falling apart at the molecular level. That process spits out a group of toxic compounds called aldehydes. 2 of the rougher ones go by the names 4-hydroxynonenal and malondialdehyde. You don't need to memorize those. You just need to know what they do. And it helps to understand why these oils are so fragile in the first place. They're high in what are called polyunsaturated fats, a type of fat with a delicate chemical structure that reacts very easily with oxygen, especially under heat. The more times you heat them, the more they react, and the more of those toxic byproducts you end up creating. So the second fry isn't just a repeat of the first, it's worse. When reheated oil breaks down like this, it releases free radicals. Think of them as tiny sparks flying off an unattended fire, each one shooting off in a random direction and slamming into healthy cells. They tear at those cells from the inside, and that includes your DNA. Your DNA is the instruction manual inside every cell. It tells each one how to grow, when to stop, and when to quietly retire to make room for new cells. When that manual gets damaged enough times, a cell can stop following the rules. It starts dividing when it shouldn't. That is the very beginning of how cancer gets started. Your pancreas is especially exposed to this kind of damage. Every time you eat something fried and reheated in oil, your body fires up an inflammatory response to try to contain the harm. That part is normal. That's protection. But if you're reheating fried food a few times a week, that inflammation never really switches off. A pancreas stuck in constant low-grade inflammation is an organ trying to do delicate, precise work while smoke fills the room. Every enzyme it makes, every hormone signal it sends, has to happen in conditions it was never built for. And you might be feeling small hints of this already. A dull, heavy feeling in your upper belly after a meal that you write off as just eating too much. A strange wave of tiredness right after you eat that you blame on a long day. A vague ache under your ribs that comes and goes, the kind you label as bad digestion. Sometimes it really is just digestion, but sometimes it's worth paying closer attention to. There's a pattern that shows up in primary care more often than you'd expect. Take someone like Linda, 58, careful with money, hates waste. 2 or 3 evenings a week, she'd reheat the previous night's fried dinner in a hot, oily skillet, proud of herself for not letting food go bad. She kept mentioning that same vague heaviness in her upper abdomen, the kind that never quite became a real problem, but never quite went away either. Nothing dramatic ever showed up on any test, but the daily chemistry of those reheated, re-oiled meals was doing quiet work in the background. That's exactly the kind of thing that rarely sends a person running to the doctor, and that's what makes it so easy to miss. So what actually helps here? The first rule is simple, and it's worth treating as non-negotiable. Don't reheat fried food in oil. Not fresh oil, not the same oil from before. If you want that crispy texture back, dry heat is your friend. A regular oven set around 350 degrees or an air fryer brings the crunch right back without adding a single drop of new chemical damage. And as a second habit a lot of people find easy to adopt, treat frying oil as one-time use. Fry today, pour it out today. When you stack the price of a bottle of oil against the cost of pancreatic disease, the math makes itself. Now the second food, and this one genuinely throws people because for years it has sat at the very top of every healthy eating list out there. The kind of list even nutrition experts repeat without a second thought. Picture a Sunday night. You saute some spinach with garlic and a little olive oil, dark green, perfectly cooked, and you feel great about it. You're eating right, you're taking care of yourself, you box up the extra and put it in the fridge. Monday at lunch, you pull it out. 90 seconds in the microwave, done. Looks the same, smells the same, tastes the same. But that second round of heat just set off a reaction inside that spinach that the World Health Organization formally links to cancer risk. Here's the chain of events. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard, arugula, naturally contain compounds called nitrates. Fresh, they're completely harmless. But once you've cooked those greens and let them sit, ordinary bacteria already present in the food start converting those harmless nitrates into nitrites. Then, when you apply heat a second time, those nitrites react with the amino acids in the food and form a new group of compounds called nitrosamines. That's the word to hang on to, nitrosamines. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is the World Health Organization's dedicated cancer agency, classifies many nitrosamines as probable human carcinogens. They're also what scientists call genotoxic, which simply means they can slip straight into the nucleus of a cell and damage the DNA directly. Not from the outside, but right at the genetic controls. Picture your DNA as the master blueprint your body uses to build and repair everything inside you. Nitrosamines are like someone sneaking into the blueprint room every few days and erasing one instruction, changing one measurement. Your built-in repair crews catch most of these errors, but not every single one. Over months and years, the damage that slips through can start producing cells that don't behave the way they should. And here's why this matters for the pancreas specifically. Once your body absorbs those nitrosamines from that reheated spinach, they travel through your whole system. Your pancreas gets pulled into the cleanup process again and again. Week after week, it finds itself working in a chemical environment it has to keep neutralizing under steady, low-level stress. The fix could not be easier, and it might surprise you. Eat your cooked greens cold. Cold spinach folded into a grain bowl, tossed into a salad, rolled into a wrap, every bit of the nutrition is still there. No second heating means no nitrosamines forming. Full stop. And if you really want them warm, the move a lot of people land on is to cook only what you'll eat right then. Not a week's worth, just this one meal. If you do reheat, reheat once and only once. Every additional round of heat multiplies the nitrosamines that form. That's not a scare tactic, that's just chemistry. The third food looks the most innocent of all. No sharp taste, no strong smell. You couldn't detect the risk with any of your senses if you tried. A pot of rice you cooked a few days back, you made a big batch, it's just easier that way. Each day you heat up a portion. Everybody does this. There's a pot of leftover rice in kitchens all over the planet. But from the moment that rice cools down after cooking, something biological starts unfolding inside it that almost nobody ever gets told about. Let me introduce you to a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. It rides along in raw rice from basically any grocery store, anywhere. Cooking kills the active bacteria, but it does not kill the spores. A spore is a tough little survival capsule that certain bacteria form specifically to ride out conditions that would normally destroy them. Boiling water doesn't faze them. Standard cooking temperatures don't faze them. They just sit quietly in your perfectly cooked rice, invisible and undetectable, waiting for the temperature to drop into their favorite range for multiplying, which happens to be right about the temperature of your kitchen counter as the rice cools. Once it cools, those spores wake up, they divide, they produce toxins. And here's the detail that matters most. One of those toxins is heat stable. So the next day when you microwave that rice, you do kill the living bacteria, but the toxin they already made while they were multiplying sails right through the reheating untouched and lands in your body fully active. Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine a hidden factory pumping out a toxic chemical down in your basement. You find it and shut it down. You cut the power to every machine. But the barrels it already filled before you got there are still sitting in the warehouse. Your microwave shut down the factory, but the barrels are already on your plate. So where does the pancreas come in? Repeated exposure to these toxins, even small doses, even without a full-blown bout of food poisoning every single time, can create low-grade, ongoing inflammation in your gut. And researchers are paying more and more attention to the links between long-term gut inflammation and the health of nearby organs, including the pancreas. The two are closely connected. They share blood supply, they share lymphatic drainage, and they share the same inflammatory signaling pathways. A gut that stays chronically irritated tends to pass those inflammatory signals right along to the pancreas. Food safety investigators have a name for this exact situation, and the backstory is almost always identical. Picture someone like James, 26, fresh out of college, meal prepping to save time and money. Sunday he cooks a big pot of rice, leaves it on the counter to cool for a couple of hours while he does other things, then portions it out for the week. The rice that sat out the longest is the one most likely to carry that heat-stable toxin, and no amount of microwaving fixes it. It's a genuinely well-documented scenario, and the fix comes down to timing more than anything else. So here's the practical approach. Cool cooked rice within about 1 hour of making it. Spread it out in a wide, thin layer instead of leaving it in a tall heap. More surface area means it cools faster, which gives those spores less time to switch on. Keep it no longer than 24 hours. When you reheat, heat it all the way through until it's steaming throughout, and then eat the whole portion. Once you've reheated it, don't put it back in the fridge for round 2. Simple rules, and most people just never had anyone explain them. The fourth food shows up in most households several times a week, and the danger here doesn't come from the chicken itself. It comes from one quirk of the most common appliance in your kitchen, a quirk that creates invisible zones inside your food that look perfectly safe from the outside. You reheat a couple of chicken thighs from last night. 2 pieces, microwave, 2 minutes. You touch the outside, hot. You eat. That's a standard lunch in millions of homes, and right there in that it's hot on the outside so it must be done logic is where the risk hides. A microwave doesn't heat food the way an oven does. It excites the water molecules inside the food, and those molecules generate heat on their own. But different parts of a single piece of chicken hold different amounts of water, have different density, and carry their fat in different spots. Some parts get hot enough to kill bacteria. Other parts, sometimes just an inch away, stay at a temperature where bacteria don't just survive, they happily multiply. These are called cold zones. You can't see them, you can't feel them. The outside can be scalding while the inside sits at exactly the temperature dangerous bacteria love most. 2 bugs make this especially worth taking seriously with chicken: Salmonella and Campylobacter. Both are common in raw poultry. Cooking it properly the first time wipes them out, but recontamination after cooking is easy. Through your hands, a cutting board, a shared utensil, and a cold zone in your microwave is a warm, moist, protein-rich little pocket. That's not a place where bacteria die. That's an incubator. A salmonella infection is not a mild 2-hour stomachache. It's a whole body event with high fever, hard cramps, relentless vomiting, diarrhea. Your entire immune system goes to war. And while that war is being fought in your gut, your pancreas doesn't sit it out. It gets pulled into the inflammatory response too. But here's what concerns me more than the occasional dramatic case